Hey, honors friends. I just want to go through some significant figures with you, just in case you need a little recap. So I love this little meme. Student writes incorrect number of sig figs. Teacher, I'm about to end this man's whole career. So I promise I won't end your scientific and mathematical career because of sig figs. First thing, the first rules of sig figs, all digits 1 through 9 are significant. That's the counting numbers. Zeros between significant figures, I call them sandwich zeros. They're always significant. Trailing zeros in a number are significant only if the number contains a decimal point. For example, I have my little pin here. Let me grab it. And so trailing zeros, so if the decimal point is like 100.0, then those are significant. There's 4 sig figs there. If you only have 100 and no decimal point, you only have 1 sig fig. Zeros in the beginning of a number whose function is only to place the decimals not significant. So those placers are not significant. If you had like 0.002, oops, you still only have 1 sig fig. Okay. And finally, zeros following a decimal significant figure are significant. So say, for example, you have, just like above, 100.0. If I put 3 zeros after that, or even 4 zeros, then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sig figs there. Because for some reason, it would be important to include those decimals. Now, here's some examples, how many sig figs in each of the following values. So look at 310. We see we have a trailing zero, but we have no decimal point. So we have 2 sig figs. Looking at 2300, again, no decimal point. We have trailers. So again, we have 2 sig figs. And we have 0.001204. We have some beginning zeros, and so they're just placers. So we have 4 sig figs, the 1, 2, the 0, and the 4, because we have a sandwich right. Let's see if I can get my pen on there. We got a sandwich 0 right there. Okay, sig figs and scientific notation. So again, scientific notation, let's think about this. If we would write this in scientific notation, we would write point or 0 point. We'd move our decimal place 3 spaces. So it'd be 0, 0, 3, 4. If you think about that, if we wrote it like this, we would have 2 significant figures. So therefore, when we do sig figs, you only count basically the significant figures in this part of the answer, not your base 10. So therefore, we have 2 sig figs here. When we have 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, that number will sound familiar. Hopefully it does already. But that's the number of atoms in 1 mole of any, or number of particles in 1 mole of any substance, really. We have just the 6.02. So we have 3 sig figs because that 0 is sandwiched in there. Then we have 2.00 times 10 to the 7th. Because we have 2.00, we have 3 sig figs right here. If we would just have 2 times 10 to the 7th, we would just have 1 sig fig. So we have 3 sig figs there. Calculations using sig figs. Here's the big rule. When adding and subtracting, you're going to limit and round your answer to the least number of decimal places and any of the numbers that make up your answer. So say I have this problem here. I lined up my decimal places over here. I have 3.45 and 5.789, 12. I get 21.239. I don't want to report all of those sig figs. 3.45, we have 3 sig figs. Here we have 4, and here we have 2. So we have 2 sig figs, and those, it does not go past the decimal. So we're going to keep everything to the left of the decimal. So therefore, our answer, only 2 sig figs are necessary, so our answer is 21. Calculation using sig figs when multiplying and dividing. We're going to limit and round to the least number of sig figs in any of the factors. So in this case here, the 4.5, we have 2 sig figs. With 0.003, we only have 1 sig fig. So because we have 1 sig fig, here's our answer. Only 1 sig fig necessary, so the answer is 0.01. Okay, remember this is that 0.01. Those zeros are leading zeros. Calculations with scientific notation follow the same rules that you use for non-scientific notation. So in this case, again, we're dividing. So we're just totaling up here. We have 3 sig figs here. We have 3 sig figs here. So we're going to go ahead and you can just punch that in your calculator and you're going to get this in your calculator. And a lot of students always like to write those giant numbers and they're like, at least Miss D will know what I'm talking about. But you need to actually get it down to 3 sig figs. So the answer is 182. Finally, you did this. So practice, practice, practice. Remember, I won't count them wrong for a while, and I'll just circle and just let you know. But then after a while, you get plus or minus 1, but we are going to make sure we express the numbers in sig figs. Great job today, guys. I'll talk to you later.